pánové privatizáci.
Eine Aufnahme. Spanien und
Welcome back to One More Things. I'm excited to announce a new series starting with today's episode. I'll be talking to various artists, writers, and all other kinds of creators to talk about what it is to try and make things in this, a decidedly turbulent time. The first guest in this new series is the essayist and educator Silas Hansen. I've known Silas for going on 15 years now. We went to graduate school together. We had a great conversation about writing, reading, talking through what art can and should do, and a whole lot more. I was honored that Silas came on the show. He is one of my favorite people in the history of people. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Well, how was AWP?
It was really good. I didn't go last year. I hate Los Angeles. And I mean, I haven't spent a ton of time there, but the last time I was there, I was not happy. So I stayed home last year. So, I mean, it was weird to be back there, but I had a really good time. You know Mike Cardos, right?
Yeah.
So Mike and Joe Astrike started a band called Set with an exclamation point. And it was the two of them, and I can't remember the other two guys' names, but they were some people that I think Joe knew. So they started a band and they played, Katie Pierce did a poetry reading ahead of time, and a bunch of OSU people, and Allison Joseph read, a couple other people. And then Mike and Joe's band played, and then a Baltimore band played, and that was really cool. They were great. Katie did she sang Ziggy Stardust.
Okay.
It was really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reviewed Mike's book for, I think, Pleiades back in the day.
His first one?
Yeah, the short stories, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He's had a couple novels since then, but
yeah. That novel, and then the novel he wrote after that was pretty good. Kind of like a sort of, highbrow sort of, crime thriller, really.
Yeah, that's the one that I remember really well. He's had at least one more since then, I think, maybe two, but yeah.
Okay, so tell us who you are and what you do, Silas.
Oh, that's right. I have a job to do here. My name is Silas Hansen. I am an essayist. I teach creative writing. I have 2 cats. That's about it. Write essays.
Brilliant. So, I mean, I wanted to have you on because I've been thinking a lot, I guess, about like what it is to be like an artist. And I think by artist, I mean like anyone who makes like anything, right? Or curates or performs in certain ways. Also being an educator, community organizer. I'm being very broad in terms of like what an artist is. But I'm interested in this idea of like what it is to try to do, right? Try to make and do things in this, like, let's call it the age of Trump, right? And I mean, it extends beyond just the man into more of like a mindset and attitude, but I think he's become a kind of like signifier of it.
Oh yeah.
So let me ask you this. I don't want to talk about like what art is, because I think that's a stupid question. And I want to get like out of the way, I think, immediately that all art is political, even if it's just like Thomas Kincaid landscapes, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah. so
you should say that, because I was just listening to a podcast the other day about what a terrible person it turns out Thomas Kincaid actually was.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if you know the podcast Behind the Bastards. It's one of my favorite. It's like a leftist history podcast. But they do like one episode will be about Elon Musk, and then the next episode will be about Hitler and his weird Actually, a really good one is Saddam Hussein and his weird romance novels that he wrote. Like, there's a whole series of episodes.
Okay.
You know about that, right?
Yeah. Brilliant.
And
Okay.
the next one will be about like the weirdest cult leader you've never heard of, and then the next one is Thomas Kincaid. So it's like kind of all over the place, but it tends to be people who have had some kind of like really big impact, not just like that's a bad person. It's like somebody who's like actually. So I haven't finished those episodes. I'm not exactly sure what makes him a bastard, but apparently more political than you'd think.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Right. But I mean, but like that's my point, right? Is like
exactly.
even these like terrible like behind the sofa like paintings are political, and so like I don't want to even like pretend that art isn't. But I do want to get your thoughts, like, to start off with, on what art can do or what art should do.
That's a really good question. In terms of what it should do, I think I have a hard time with that question because I think that art can do a lot of different things. And I have trouble telling other people what their art should do. Like, I've been thinking about this a lot lately with like I've been really into movies lately, and I watched I loved Sinners, I loved One Battle After Another. For some reason I seem to be one of the few people that really loved both of those movies. Like, it seems like they've been pitted against each other in this way. I get why, and I understand the critiques of I absolutely understand the critiques of One Battle After Another. I think it was a great movie, but I get why people have critiques of it. But like for me, like the critique of One Battle After Another is like that he told this story and not this story. And to me, it's almost like, okay, but that's the story that Paul Thomas Anderson's trying to tell. Like it really kind of solidified for me when he gave his acceptance speech at the Oscars and he was thanking his kids and he was talking about that. And I was like, you know what? This is a white man raising Black kids with Maya Rudolph in 2026 America, right? Like he kind of almost is in some ways working through what that means as a white father with these views who is an imperfect leftist, whatever that means. And I found that really interesting to think about because I hadn't really connected that. Like, I knew he was married to Maya Rudolph. I had all that information, but it didn't click. And for me, it's like, that's the story he's trying to tell. The problem is when that's the only story we're getting, right? Like, we're not getting the story from any of the other points of view, right? And that's not Paul Thomas Anderson's fault, but it's also like, at what point is he, I feel like it's messy, right? And so I think that people have to make the art that is meaningful to them and that means something to them. For me, that means that I think the work I tend to write nonfiction rather than fiction because I want it to almost serve like a roadmap for other people. Like, I don't want to say, here's what you have to think. Instead, I'm trying to say, like, here's what I think. What do you think? Right? I'm more trying to, like, not even necessarily create a conversation, but just show people how I got around to my way of thinking, which tends to get political, even if it's not overtly political, just because of kind of what I'm writing about, that sort of thing. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I mean, no, yes, and it also opens up, I think, a wider discussion point. And so part of like what I hear you saying about like the PTA thing is that we watch this film and we have questions about the Black feminism, right? In the film. And by questions, I mean, like, why is he starting off this story with such a focus on this like Black feminism? And then we like quickly move away into kind of like white male fragility almost, right? And one of the things I hear you saying is that this is the film that he wanted to make. And then some of us are saying, but we wanted you to do this.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, please.
Oh, no, I was just saying, like, I think, like, that's valid. Like, there are times when, we should, like, if he had written this movie and there were no Black characters, or he had done something, like, really fucked up with the black characters or something like that, then I would absolutely, like, you know, I'm totally there with you. But when it's more just like we're focusing on this different character, I don't know that he could write it and focus on somebody else, right? Like that's the story he's trying to tell there, right? And it's an interesting story to tell. It's not the most valuable story necessarily, but that's not the point of art necessarily. It's to tell the most valuable story. It's to tell the most compelling story, right? Or the most compelling to you at that moment in time. Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or the quote unquote maybe like truest story to you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think for me, like, so much of that character. Sorry, I keep talking about this. I don't even know if
that's okay. Yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say, like, one of the things I really enjoyed about that was that you see so much of, like, I'm thinking of the scene where Leonardo DiCaprio's character is riding with Benicio del Toro, and he says something about how he doesn't even know how to fix her hair, right? It's like such a small thing, but it's like it made me think, like, I wonder if PTA's thought that, you know what I mean? If he's had to, or if he, because he did still have his partner around, like, he was able to learn those things and was able to be the kind of father that, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's working with some really interesting emotions there that I found really compelling in the film. So
because we can almost see Ghetto Pat or Bob, right, as
that's his name, Bob.
As a surrogate for PTA in the film, right? As someone going through this kind of same raising a child, raising a black child, right? And in 2026, or I guess whatever kind of, like, time like we're supposed to be in.
I mean, unfortunately, it's becoming more and more like 2026.
I know, right? I mean, it's hard to separate the time, like, in the film from the time that we're in now, because there's so many similarities, which again, okay. So let me say this too, right? Like turbulent times are nothing new, right? Everyone before us has, like, lived through like turbulent times.
Why is it so hard now? And it's like, it's always been hard.
It's always hard.
It's always been hard.
But like, these hard times are unique to us, right? I mean, it's like the first line. It's like the opening line in Anna Karenina, right? I mean,
I don't actually think I know what the opening line is.
All happy families are the same, but all unhappy
I didn't
families.
Realize that was the okay. I've heard that. I just realized the opening line was that.
I mean, so it's kind of like, these shitty times are unique to us because, like, we're in the middle of them right now, right? And then, of course, when we're dead and gone, heaven forbid, right? People are going to say the same things, like, "Oh, why is it so hard right now?" I mean, that's like nothing new, but, like,
remember
we're seeing
2026 when it was easy.
God, well, and, like, I mean, in this, like, the conversation we're having is nothing new, right? I mean, this conversation came up, in 2016, and it's happened before then as well. But the same kind of idea of what is it to be, say, a creative person or an artist in 2016, under the first, like, Trump administration. Here we are having that same, like, conversation, and we're sort of seeing these same things kind of acted out on screen as well. But I do think, like, One Battle After Another is a really good kind of analog to this conversation, right? Of, PTA trying to do one thing or trying to make the film that he really wants to make. And, a certain section of viewers going, yeah, but we wanted you to do, X.
Yeah.
And we can have, it's okay to have that critique. But I think one of the things I hear you saying is that, like, we're not meeting art, or at least that film, kind of where it is, right? We're not trying to meet it where it is.
Yeah, and I go back and forth because I think like I said, some of the critiques of that movie I think are completely valid. But I think we miss the point when we focus on, why are you telling this story instead of here's how you could have told this story better, right? It's really similar to how I talk about it with my students, right? Like, we can't make the essay into what we want it to be, right? Like, we have to meet the writer where they are. How can they make the best art that they are trying to make, right? Yeah. And I mean, I also want to clarify, like, I know that you and I both think of the world in the terms of nonfiction. I don't think that, I don't think Bob is like a 1-for-1 for Paul Thomas Anderson, right? One of the things I really like about fiction is that it allows you to kind of play around with it and be like, well, what if, right? Yeah. You start with the one little germ of truth, which is this anxiety that I have, but then you assign it to somebody who is, right? Like, I just want to be clear for anybody listening.
No, right. Right. Because and I'm not saying that as well, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't think that this is Paul.
No, I knew that you and I were on the same page, but I just it's something was like that's right. Other people listening to us.
I co-hosted an event in the fall of it was a double feature of 2 Greg Araki films. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've seen The Doom Generation or Totally Fucked Up. Okay. You should watch these films if you get a chance. They're incredible. But the James Duval was the actor who starred in both. And one of the things we talked to him about was sort of being a kind of like stand-in for the director, right? Not again, like not a one-to-one, but very clearly kind of there to give us like, he's looking at some of the things the director is really thinking of, right, and sort of dealing with, and so I do think it's interesting, especially in cinema, how auteurs especially can sort of put their own sort of mindsets or perspectives and point of view like through specific characters. I mean, something else like that kind of art form can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So you've mentioned a couple times now about your work. So, and that you're an essayist. So how would you describe the essays that you write?
It depends on what we're talking about. So I have been struggling a lot to write, because, I mean, a lot of it is because of kind of like the hellscape that we're in, right?
Okay.
So
yeah.
I tend to write about gender and masculinity, as a trans man, who looks like this, right? Where like most people that I meet like if I meet somebody on the street, they have no idea, right? Like when I tell people, they're always like, wait, what? Like that's, and so I write a lot about kind of that, kind of weird space that I'm in where I have this life experience that nobody expects me to have had. And I have this view on the world that nobody expects me to have. And that it's like complicated in that way. So I've been writing a lot about like friendship, the ways that we learn and unlearn masculinity, kind of like the generational differences, things like that. But then with everything that goes on, I mean, like, for example, Idaho's new law that they just passed the other day, making it a 5-year felony to use the wrong bathroom. It's like, okay, so I go to Idaho, which one am I supposed to use?
Right.
Right. Like, I mean, my driver's license, my passport, everything says male, but that's not what they mean, right? I don't know. Anyway, it puts me in this situation where it just feels really complicated and messy, and writing about it these days feels scarier than it did 4 or 5 years ago even. Like it feels like I'm putting a target on my back a lot of the time, especially, living in the Midwest in a red state. And so I've been writing a little bit more about some other things. I've been kind of like playing around. I've been trying to write some fiction, although failing miserably at it, because I have a terrible sense of plot. That's why I write nonfiction. The plot's already there, right? Already there.
Right.
Yeah. And so I've been writing a lot lately about dive bars, and like gender comes up in it, but it's less of the focus. And so that's been kind of nice to kind of look at it from a different perspective and not have it be like right head on that's what I'm talking about. So.
Okay. So this is interesting. And this is one of the reasons, I mean, again, one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation is because as morbid as this is to like say, or as it might sound, I find this idea that you feel like you have a kind of target on your back kind of fascinating. Because I mean, look, let's just be like, honest about it. As like a cishet white man, right, who looks the way I do, I'm not going to have that kind of target, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to, as much as I can try and empathize, I'm not going to really understand that. So I wonder, could you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I mean, I feel really conflicted about it too, because unless I tell somebody I kind of have the same kind of safety that you have generally.
Yeah.
There's some complications, right? Like I got to be thinking about like access to medications and things like that, like I can't just like put my head down and pretend it's not a problem. But there's a certain amount of truth to that. Like I could do that, right? And that's kind of where I struggle is like if I do kind of put my head down, then I feel like I'm part of the problem. But if I do come out, if I do speak up, all of that kind of stuff, then I absolutely am putting a target on my back where, I mean, I don't want to, because of situations going on, I'm very purposely not saying what state I live in or where I teach. But there's been several situations in my state that make me very uncomfortable with the safety of my job and the safety of like also just like not getting doxxed, right? Like I've been doxxed before. County council member in my town doxed me. Like loads of fun, right? And like nothing happened because of it. I got one email and it was from a student checking to make sure I was okay because he'd heard about it, right? Like it wasn't a big deal, but it could have been, right? And it's one of those things where it's like just one wrong person, right? And so
Yeah. So I want to talk about like the teaching aspect, specifically in a moment. But how sort of under threat as an artist do you feel, or like as a writer? I mean, is it so like is it if you write an essay right about gender identity and the idea of which bathroom to use, and you publish that essay, is the worry then more connected to kind of where you teach, where you live, or?
Honestly, I think I would have that fear no matter where I live.
Okay.
It would potentially be less scary if I was in, Minneapolis or something like that, just because like I would potentially have different protections with job stuff, but
sure.
But honestly, I would still have similar fears, right? It's less about like one specific thing and more about all the little things that could happen, right? And as a writer, it's less of an issue. It's more the way that my writing could ultimately end up affecting my teaching.
Yes.
Even though I never really talk about gender with my students unless it comes up in one of their essays, right? Like that's not really something that I talk about unless I'm using, I might say, I write about gender. That's about it, right? And like if I'm giving an example, I try not to even use something that personal because it's not really something I want to talk about with my students, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times there's this thought that what we're publishing is also exactly what we're talking about with our students. And that's something that people misunderstand about academia, that like, I might talk about that with my grad students, but I don't with my undergrads, or I might talk about it in this one class where it's specifically about queerness or it's relevant to the book we're reading, but I'm not going to just like bring that up randomly in intro to creative writing because it's not relevant to the class, right? And so I try to stay on topic as much as I can, right? If I'm off topic, it's because we're talking about a movie that we all saw or something like that. I'm not trying to indoctrinate anybody.
Well, it's such, I mean, like, and then that is such a straw man argument that like that as educators who, I mean, let's be honest, right? Like lean towards the left or are way to the left, whatever you want to say, right? That we're trying to indoctrinate everyone to sort of think the same way. And that's just not true. I do think though, like as writers, our artistic careers are so closely tied to also our academic careers because like, I don't know, do you know any writers who just write for a living?
Very few.
Okay, that's right.
Like I can think of a couple, but I'm sure a lot of them are doing some other stuff on the side that like we don't even think about. You know what I mean? Like I can think of people who are doing like primarily writing full time and then do some like visiting gig kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
it is few and far between. I mean, so and even I think like successful and well-known writers, right, are still largely based in academia, right? In the university and college system. So it is, I think, very closely tied. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when the institution you teach at, when they hired you, I mean, how much did you disclose, or how much did you?
Oh,
how much did?
I mean, they knew. I
Right.
don't. I mean, you've been on the academic job market. You know that,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
the higher ups don't necessarily read your work. So, like, the people on the committee absolutely knew
Right.
what I was worrying about and who I am.
Right.
Beyond that, I can't guarantee anything. But I mean, I never hit it.
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just think that I mean, that again, like, speaks to this idea of, you still feel that like this sense of peril is like right there. So even though like the
Never
people,
felt that way here, even though it's a very it's a relatively conservative state, relatively conservative everything. I never felt that way until this most recent election.
Yeah. And because of the new laws coming in because of, I mean, I think really political interference in the education system, right? And again, right,
Well,
I'm not
that. It's just in general, all of these laws that are targeting trans people, like, they've really taken off. Like, I remember when that first bathroom bill passed in North Carolina, and it was like such a big deal. People were so up in arms about it. The NCAA pulled out, like, it was like a whole thing. And now it's like the mainstream opinion from the New York Times. Like, it's
Well, fuck the New York Times.
From the
fucking serious. Fuck
presumptive
the New York
nominee
Times
for the Democratic Party, who will not be getting my vote, that's for damn sure. So.
No, right. I mean, this is how hegemonies work, right? I mean, this is eventually the thing we're all up in arms against becomes the norm, because the institutions of power sort of make it that way, and we're all just kind of like, well, I guess it's okay
that
now.
slow creep. Yep.
So tell me a little bit about how then, because I think this is a really, maybe even more nuanced than the writing aspect. How has the teaching sort of changed because of some of these, like?
To be honest, my teaching hasn't changed much. So I mean, basically what I've been told, and I mean, I'll be honest, like, I have the best apartment chair in the entire world.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've basically been told, like, you're allowed to teach your discipline. You're allowed to teach your area of expertise. Like, we have your back if that's what you're doing, right? Like, and that's kind of where I've always been. I don't get into overt political conversations with them because that's not really what we're talking about. But I teach essays that do bring up some of those topics sometimes. But like, when we talk about them, we're like, okay, so if you're writing about a political issue, what are the things you might need to think about as the writer? We're not necessarily getting into, like, what's this writer's argument and why are they making it and is it true or whatever, right? If we're reading Ross Gay's Some Thoughts on Mercy, I'm not having them read that because I want them to agree with him necessarily. Like, I agree with him, but that doesn't mean that you as the reader have to. It's I want them to see, like, okay, so if I'm talking about this kind of idea, what are the ways that I can write in expository prose? How can I make that look interesting, right? And so I don't feel too nervous about my teaching because of that. I haven't had any problems. I feel pretty confident that I'm not doing anything wrong. Both, I know that I'm not doing anything wrong, but then I also, like, I'm pretty confident that I'm not doing anything wrong based on what the law says. But I have a lot of anxiety that I did not have before. Where I'm like, I second guess myself a little bit sometimes. And like last fall, right before all of so we have to turn in our book orders like a year, 6 months in advance, whatever. And so I had picked my books for last fall's graduate class before any of those laws passed. And I assigned Detransition Baby by Tori Peters, which is one of my favorite books. I think it's a beautiful novel. And I mean, obviously, like, there's some complicated stuff in there, but it's not why I assigned it. I assigned it because I think it's a really good book, and I thought that the students would really like it. And like, there was a part of me that was like, is it okay for me to teach this now? Yeah. Like, is that something I'm allowed to do? And I ultimately decided, I'm not doing anything wrong. I taught this book before because I thought that the students would like it, and it went well, and I'm going to teach it again. And it did go well, and the students handled it. I mean, like, I don't know that I would have with undergrads, but honestly, I wouldn't have assigned that book to undergrads before, right? Like, it's one that, like, maybe I would suggest it to a couple of undergrads who I knew would be able to handle it, but it's not one that I would necessarily give to just, like, all 20-year-olds, because some of them would struggle. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is, again, such a weird place to be in, right?
Yeah.
Both of us teaching in higher education, teaching similar things. I'm assuming I teach more like first year composition than you do.
Yeah, I don't teach any of that.
Okay.
I mean, I have freshmen occasionally, but it's because they've already taken that class in like high school or something. So
right. And so my schedule is like composition classes and creative writing workshops. Mm-hmm. And I typically have I have a rule, and I don't say this out loud, but like if you look at my syllabus for like first year composition, there are no straight white men on the syllabus. You know what I mean? So we are teaching writers, or we're reading, readers of color. We're reading LGBTQ writers who are writing about these things, but I don't have to say anything, right? I don't walk in and go, okay, here's the deal, right? No straight white men. But if you're paying attention, you're like, huh, there's no straight white men on this syllabus, and I've done that for quite a while now. And I think every semester I get a little kind of like, somebody going to say something? Is somebody going to,
to be honest, I'm surprised nobody said anything.
Yeah.
But like, I also don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with it. You know what I mean?
No, there isn't. That's the thing, right? I mean, is that there's not. And you can always look at, and I think this is kind of what you were saying with, detransition babies. You can look at these works and go, oh, okay, they're being read for the merit, right, of the work and how they relate to the class. Mm-hmm. It just so happens, right, that I can also kind of be subversive with these choices as well, which I think is important anyway, right?
Absolutely.
To be subversive in education.
I have always made an effort to be as diverse as possible with the stuff that I'm picking. And I try to make sure that, like, not everything. My problem actually is that most of the stuff I teach just like automatically is by women, even when I'm not paying attention to it. Because, like, number one, nonfiction, I think, tends to be, I don't have data to back this up, but anecdotally, I can just, like, every nonfiction workshop I've ever been in has been primarily women. And so I think, which is weird potentially, but like in grad school, every time, like, there were multiple times where like either you or Bill Riley were the only two other men around, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I think partially it's that, but then partially I think that's kind of the stories that I'm often drawn to. But it tends to be that my syllabus tends to be a lot of women without me even thinking about it. And so I often have to make a conscious effort to, like, put Black men on there, or to, do something like that where I'm not, where I'm making sure that all of these voices are being heard. But yeah.
It's interesting that you said that about the women writers, because I'm very much the same. I think most of what I read in terms of, well, especially sort of essayists or like different kinds of nonfiction writing are by women. I mean, we all know that I'm like a Joan Didion and Maggie Nelson fanboy, right? but now I've also become like a Kate Zambrino fanboy, where I'm just like, oh man, you have to, yeah. So she was someone who, for whatever reason, I just like put off reading for a long time. I'm like, oh, I need to get those books. And then once I did, I was like, oh, holy shit. Like, why did I wait so long to like get into? So now I'm just like going through her entire, like, catalog. And I just think it's wonderful.
What was the name on that one you said?
Kate Zambrino.
Okay. I was just writing that down before I forget.
Yeah, no, she's, yeah, I mean, just fantastic. And just, I mean, plays around with form and structure, and like, and will sometimes write a lot about art, but then writes about motherhood. And it's I don't know. It's fascinating, right? But that's all to say that I strongly agree that I think the most interesting sort of like writers and artists right now, at least for me, are women. And
there
even
are
if
a lot
that's
of men whose work I really enjoy, but for the most part, like, if I listed 10 of my favorite writers, probably 7 of them would be women.
yeah, I think like hands down, and especially like. And not just in writing, but I think in music, I think in filmmaking, like there's so many interesting women who don't get nearly enough kind of like credit or recognition. So yeah, here's a question. Well, here's something that I wanted to go back to. Unless you had more to say about women, because I don't want to like not talk about women.
I was just going to say, no, but I do feel a little bit like we're, do you listen to Amy Poehler's podcast at all?
I haven't.
Okay. It's
should,
great.
but okay.
Because it's hilarious, but she anytime somebody's on there, she's like, okay, let's talk about how much we love women.
Yes. Well, this also
it feels like we're kind of like the male version of Amy Poehler right now.
Yes. And no, absolutely. And just like in class, I had a class a couple weeks ago, before spring break, where I just went off on like this like feminist tirade. I mean, I forget what story we were reading. I think we had just read Story of an Hour and Hills Like White Elephants and something else. And I mean, I was just like, men are stupid. Men have no idea like how to listen to women, how to react, how to anything. And I was just like, look, the world would be better if women were in charge. Just like, and like, for whatever reason, I was like angry. I was like really pissed off. And a lot of the women in class were just like, nodding their head. And then some of the men were like, I don't know that I'm going to look at you right now. It was just really weird. But,
that's really funny.
Yeah.
I don't tend to. So it's actually funny to me that like you are more, that you are less. What's the word I'm looking for? Empathetic to men in this situation than I am. Look, I do think that there are. I don't want to say not all men,
right? Because all men really.
I mean, like I think that. Yeah, it's. I find those things in myself too. You know what I mean? Like there are and so yeah, I try not to be like that because I've found that the men who find their way into nonfiction classrooms tend to be the opposite of that kind of boy. Often the guys in my class need somebody to tell them that their voice matters.
Yeah.
For some reason. You know what I mean? Like either they're queer or they grew up really poor or they're coming from an abusive family or something. Like they almost always have a story that they need some help getting out.
Yeah.
I say that, but then there's always the one.
Well, and this is I do want to make. I mean, I do say like all men and jokingly, but look, we all mess up, and like,
I'm just teasing,
and that's okay. No, but I do think that you hit on something kind of very serious, and that is like we continue to see these studies about how young men are really in trouble, and in part because they're not taught how to be people. Right? I mean, they're typically taught like this is what masculinity is, or this is what it is to be a man, which is problematic. And then they're not taught, and I mean, I think you've seen this, right? With probably with other people, but they're not taught really how to sort of form close relationships, right? And especially kind of as we get older, that gets harder and harder. And I think there's few of us that are able to sort of just be okay being alone with ourselves. Right. And not having a kind of like closer knit community. So, I mean, I do think what you're saying about like making sure that they know that their voice is important and worth being heard is really important.
Yeah. I've been writing a little bit about kind of the quote unquote male loneliness epidemic lately. And that's kind of the, where I've landed on it is like it really comes down to it's about community and about being vulnerable with each other and being able to like kind of create those bonds. And like people don't know how to do that. And I think a lot of people say, "Oh, it's the pandemic," and it's like, no, because I don't think my dad knows how to do that either.
Right.
Like, I think that is a thing that we don't teach men how to do.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that creative writing workshops can do is teach them that, right? They have to be able to share this and talk to their classmates about their feelings. And it's always very clear to me, like, which men in my classroom are comfortable doing that and which ones are not. And the ones who are comfortable doing that tend to be very successful.
Yeah.
Like, in all areas of their life. Like, they seem to be, like, almost all of them have a girlfriend who they seem to have a very healthy relationship with. They all seem to have friends, right? Like, it's very clear to me, like, watching them interact with their classmates, like, who is emotionally available and able to be vulnerable and who isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think writing workshops, I mean, nonfiction or not, frankly, are really good places for community building, right? For saying, look, we're going to have to be vulnerable with each other. We're going to have to open up. We're going to have to sit and listen, right, to someone kind of, maybe criticize us more than we want, but knowing that that's meant to be from a place of good and a place of helping us improve. And I think that, those workshops can go very badly as well, right? Especially if the wrong person is if the wrong person is, quote unquote, in charge of that room, then it can go badly. I don't know. Do you know what I do for my workshops? I still employ the circle of love.
I don't exactly, but we do always start with, we talk about what's working in the
but I make them all say love.
Was that a Lee K. Abbott thing?
That was a Lee K. Abbott thing.
I thought so.
Yep. Yeah. But no, anytime a student's like, well, I really liked, and I'm like, you loved? And they're like, okay, sorry, loved. It just, so I still use that, and I still, I still make sure that we emphasize that word, right? That word love in a platonic sense of, like, it's okay to sit here. And I also do the thing in class where I'm like, tell your friends you love them. And they're like, what? Yeah. My classrooms are interesting places, man. I'm telling you. Okay, so something, I'm going to bring up love again here, but something that I've always loved about the essay, and I think especially like the personal essay, is that a lot of times, like, when we end up writing about the self, right, or a single person, a single moment, we're really writing about the world writ large, right? And like, this is something that I think people miss when they throw disparaging terms at, like, pieces of memoir or personal essays, right? When they want to shout solipsism or, like, navel gazing. So, I mean, I guess, like, I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, which is why I'm coming back to this, but could you say a little bit more about that, about how maybe you're trying to reach kind of like the wider world, like, through, like, a specific experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you're trying to gain access to somebody else's experience, there's a lot of different ways you can go about that, right? Like, when you're trying to learn about somebody else's experience, and one of them is to read about it more intellectually, right? But the closer you get to somebody's personal experience, like one individual experience, I think the more it makes sense to you and it becomes human and it becomes more than just like this intellectual debate. And so that's often where I fall, is like, I don't want to be an intellectual debate, right? Like, I'm not interested in that. Like, anytime we're having an intellectual debate about something, I'm like, okay, but why? Like, do we need to be having this intellectual debate? Is this actually relevant to the conversation? Or can we just talk about the fact that I, a human person, need to use a bathroom and it needs to have a door? Like, that would be nice. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about what you think of gender. I just need to pee, please. Right. And, like, I think the more that we can get down to that individual story, the better it's, like, the more impact it can have, right?
So it's the idea of kind of like getting to some of these intellectual ideas through places of emotion.
Yeah, or like de-intellectualizing them and being like, it's not an intellectual debate. These are people's actual lives. Like, let's, yeah.
So you're an anti-philosopher.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. My close friends in the philosophy department will be glad to hear that.
No, because I think that's interesting. I mean, I think
I think that there's a place for intellectual debates, right? But like that's just not the thing that I'm interested in.
Right. No, I mean what I was going to say, what I think is really interesting is that we can get to these like, you know, quote unquote, like bigger intellectual ideas through these like personal experiences, right? Through these kind of very, I guess we could say like artistic displays rather than like intellectual displays, right? And I think that we too often think of them as like completely separate when they don't have to be. I mean, I think, you know, again, sorry to bring up more philosophers, but I'm going to think about like Simone de Beauvoir and Jean-Paul Sartre. I mean, they would call themselves novelists, right? They wouldn't call themselves philosophers. They were like, we're writing novels, right? But those novels expressed those philosophical ideas, right?
Yep.
Without then, of course, then they were like the two of the biggest intellectual nerds like ever, right? But there is that possibility.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think my favorite nonfiction writers tend to kind of combine the two a little bit more, like, you know, Maggie Nelson, right?
Yeah.
Gideon, Ulysses. I taught the empathy exams the other day, and my students loved it.
Oh, okay.
Which I had forgotten how much I like that essay.
Yeah, well, it's because also like she wrote other things. And
I shouldn't read the other things?
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, okay, that's good.
I wouldn't. It made me not like her.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah, because I loved the empathy exams. I love that book.
Is it the drinking book?
I fucking hated that book.
Yeah,
sorry. I fucking hated that book. And I know that like it's kind of like, you know, close to, you know, because of my background, because of my history, I know it's like close to me, but like I know like when I read a good book about addiction or alcoholism, right? I stand up, I'm the first one to applaud and be like, hell yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
No. You know, a mutual friend of ours.
When somebody's not doing the work.
Exactly. So a mutual like friend of ours, her daughter took class with her, and kind of all of my sort of like, you know, preconceptions of what kind of person she was were spot on. So yeah. Which was disappointing to like
math in my head trying to figure out who we're talking about, but yeah, you can tell me later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just don't want to like say out loud because I'm like talking shit about someone else, but yeah.
I always think that like my favorite you meet a writer and they're as nice as you want them to be. You know what I mean? Like Ulysses, lovely.
Yeah.
Just a lovely person.
Yeah. No. And I mean, it's right. I think again, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, and that's not but I just find it like just really surprising from like going from that book to then like these other things. And I'm just like, man. And then some of the journalism, okay, I'm going to stop talking about her and like, it was just really, I don't know.
Maggie Nelson.
Yeah. Oh, right. Well, if you didn't, I know that I told you to talk to Amy Sousa Riley when you were at AWP.
I didn't get a chance to, but why? I was going to say that her name sounded so familiar, and I can't figure out if I've read something to her someplace, but yeah.
Well, her book Human Animal is great. She was actually on this very podcast. So
you know what? That might be where I heard her name before.
Yeah. But she's fantastic. So if you get a chance to read her book, I would read her book too. Yeah. But no, she's wonderful. She is, I mean, and as nice as could be anyway. I look forward to seeing like whatever else like she puts out.
I'll put that out.
Okay. I do want to, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep talking about philosophers just because, right? Because I do have, I think, well, and maybe not intellectual questions, but I think questions that I want to kind of like tickle your brain with, right?
Okay.
So let me throw this quote at you. And this is from Ludwig Wittgenstein, who's like one of my favorites. But he says, "We make pictures of the world for ourselves." And so this question is kind of like, what are we trying to do? And how do you see like the artist's responsibility, or what do you see as the artist's responsibility in 2026, right? So like, what do we owe ourselves and what do we owe others?
Ooh, great question. I feel like I don't know exactly what he's getting at because, to be honest, I never took a philosophy class, and I'm the least well-read philosophy person in the entire world, so I don't have the context. But what I was going to say is it reminds me a lot of the things I've heard people say about kind of writing the book that they wish they'd had at a certain age, or writing a book for writing the kind of book that they needed when it didn't exist. And I mean, I don't know that that's exactly what I'm doing, but that's definitely something that I've thought a lot about, is like, what kind of story did I need to hear at a certain time in my life? Or, and I'm, this is going to sound like it's completely off topic, but I promise it's not. It's going to come back around.
It's fine. Yeah, don't worry about it.
In my intro to creative writing class this week, we've been talking about perspective and like who's telling the story, who's listening to the story. And do you know the fiction writer Rebecca Mackay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So another person who's just completely lovely, but she has this like I really enjoy her Substack. She's got some really cool craft essays on there, and one of them was about kind of like the ear of the story, right? Like who is, and her thought was, she's kind of making the argument that like every fiction story is a second person story, even if it's not actually a second person story, because the narrator is talking to someone specific. And so, like she was using an example of her novel. I don't know if you read. I have some questions for you, but there's like, she's talking directly to the teacher, right?
Yes.
But then in another book, it might not be that overt, but the writer is imagining, okay, this narrator is narrating this to their college roommate, or this narrator is doing whatever, right? And I think a lot of the time when I'm writing nonfiction, I've been thinking about that a little bit. Like, is that true in nonfiction too? And I think it is. And I think a lot of the time when I'm writing nonfiction, I'm not writing for myself now. I'm not writing for the reader. I'm writing for me at 23, or me at 30, or me last week, right? Like, it's not always that distant of a break, but I'm often writing to myself, or writing the thing that I wish that I'd known at that point in time. And I think that it's not going to connect to every reader, right? But like, there's something about the way that we do that as nonfiction writers that I think connects to a lot of readers. And I don't say that because I think mine does, but I think just in general, that's how nonfiction connects to people. Is like, it feels like you're seeing the writer kind of talking to their younger self and kind of playing this what if game.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of the essay First.
Yeah.
By
I love that essay.
Oh my God. Yeah. Dude, and I mean, that's an essay that I will continue to teach like over and over, right? Because of how Ryan Van Meter uses like that double I, right? As sort of like writing to himself in the present, but then also writing, as his 5-year-old self.
You've read the other essay in that book too. The if you knew then what I know now.
Yes.
I use that one with my students a lot too. So
yeah, I mean, as a collection, I think that's an incredible collection. But yeah, I mean, it was that was going to lead into another question I had about do you have an audience in mind, or are you just writing really first and foremost to yourself and for yourself? Which.
Yeah, it's complicated. I think that in some ways, when I'm drafting the essay, I'm writing it for myself. And then when I'm revising the essay, often I'm going back through, and then I am imagining a reader who maybe doesn't have the kind of context that I have, right? Because I mean, most of the readers that are going to pick up a literary magazine and read something of mine are not themselves a trans guy born in 1987, right? So like, I've got to come in sometimes and explain things and give some context. And so usually when I'm doing that kind of imagining the reader, I'm thinking more like, okay, this is somebody who's familiar, but not necessarily like, I try to kind of aim it probably like right below your level of knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you have a higher level of knowledge than what I'm aiming for.
Gotcha.
Yeah. For like a general reason.
Gotcha. Yeah.
No, so like, I mean, academics, but not the woke ones,
Right. Gotcha. Woke is such a dirty word now.
It is,
I'm
but
kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah. That's okay. That's interesting. All right. Here's another something else that I wanted to talk to you about because we both kind of work in the same. I don't want to say, I hate the word genre, right? But sort of the same like field or the same kind of form is about truth and fact. And I know that we've had these conversations like so many times, but again, I think in the year of our Lord 2026, these terms like truth and fact have like become, like for all the wrong reasons, like corruptible and debatable. But I do think they're still embedded, right, in the minds of writers like us and of other artists. And so like as a practitioner of the essay, how do you feel about like those words, especially now?
Complicated. So we were reading. I keep going back to things we were reading in my class. But,
yeah, no, of course.
We just read. Do you know the craft text bending genre?
Yes.
So yeah, there's a great essay in there by the writer Dave Madden, who teaches at University of San Francisco, I think. He's a really great dude. I really like him. But he has this essay in there called like creative exposition or something like that. And I had my students in my advanced class read that because I'm having them kind of bring in research and kind of have them engage with some kind of other conversation in their essays kind of thing. Like I basically told them, you can write memoir, but I don't want it to be just memoir. I want it to be memoir that's having this larger conversation. So we read that, and in that, it's a little bit dated at this point, but he's talking about the whole John DeGata About a Mountain fiasco. And it reminded me of that. And I was like, oh God, I had forgotten about that whole situation. I forgot they'd made it into a play.
Yep. The Lifespan of a Fact was the name of the play and the subsequent book. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, I was talking about it with my students, and none of them had any idea what I was talking about.
Right.
But when I was explaining it to them, I could see like the looks on their faces of them reacting. And I was like, oh no, this is still just as bad as I remember. Right. Like, and my problem with that whole fiasco was that they were both missing the fucking point.
Right.
Which is that it wasn't about how many strip clubs there are in the city of Nevada or the city of Las Vegas. No one cares. Like, make it 33, make it 36. I don't care. Right. That's not, to me, the thing that I'm actually interested in at all. What I'm interested in is like, what is it that's making you want to change that? What does that tell you about yourself? What is, like, do the work, man. Like even if you are not the subject matter of your essay, like you still have to do that kind of reflection.
Right.
And there's none. And I find that really interesting. Yeah. And so for me, it really comes down to like what really matters. And for me, what really matters is that you're not obfuscating to get out of asking the hard questions, if that makes sense. Like, I think that that's the place where I really care about truth and fact is like, well, are you lying to get out of it, or are you lying because you're messing with the reader? Like, what's the reasoning here, right?
Yeah.
And if you're doing it because you want to avoid the question, then why are you writing?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So kind of what I ultimately told my students was like, I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't say in your nonfiction and like how much you can speculate and all that. Like, that's entirely up to you. You have to trust your gut. You have to be consistent. You have to be willing to stand by what you say, but don't lie in order to get out of the hard question. If you can't ask the hard question, don't write the essay. You know? Yeah.
So this
I don't know if that I feel like I went off on a tangent there.
That's okay. No. That's look, that's what these things are for, right? I mean, look, tell me a podcast that doesn't go off on a tangent. And I mean, like, you know, and look, God knows there's enough of them out there, right? But no, what you're talking about reminds me. So I've been working on this essay about do you know the artist David Vonarovich?
I don't think I do.
Okay. He died in like 91 of AIDS. He was a big activist. But he staged a photograph of himself with like a bloody nose, slumped up against like a cast iron bathtub, like under the Brooklyn Bridge. And it's meant to sort of, you know, replicate like a gay bashing. Right. And it's just like him. He's got this like haunted look on his face. So I've been writing an essay about that piece of art combined with like the Next Benedict incident from 2024. And as I'm writing this essay, I kept like coming up upon like memories, right? Or feelings and ideas. And I'm like, I can't ignore that, right? I've got to kind of like dig into that more. I've got to sort of put that on the page and sort of like confront it, whatever that might be. And for better or worse. So what you were saying reminds me, exactly of that. Like if you're not going to sort of like dig into that, if you're just going to like brush by it, then why are you there, right?
Yep.
Why are you there to write this certain kind of piece or this certain kind of thing? Because now you're just being dishonest to the reader and to yourself. Yeah.
To me, it often comes down to like whatever it is that you're drawn to lie about or drawn to exaggerate. Like there's usually something going on there that's worth exploring.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I'm totally fine with speculation. I'm totally fine with messing around with the reader a little bit and fictionalizing things and playing a what if game. Like I'm totally fine with that as long as it makes sense in the story that you're trying to tell, and as long as you're not doing it to like I think it's fine to kind of like play with the reader, but I don't think it's okay to mess with the reader. Like it's a very fine line,
Right. And we're not talking about like is the color like and we're not talking about like is the color of the shirt red or is the color of the shirt yellow, right? Like,
like I don't care. I couldn't give two shits. Like just name
that stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't matter. And there's so many ways that like so many good nonfiction writers kind of, I think honestly play with that. Right?
Yeah.
Where they will just sort of take a beat to talk about how like memory fails them, right? Or like how like I can't remember, but right. I mean, again, like going back to Van Meter's essay first, right? Where he names the boy in the car with him Ben, and then tells us,
"I won't." Years from this moment, I won't be sure that the boy's name is Ben.
But that doesn't matter. Right.
Before we return to our houses,
right.
I have that essay memorized.
No, I know. So do I. I know. But I mean, I think that is a very good moment of where like the writer in the first paragraph tells us exactly what matters.
Oh, right? Because I mean, he's 5, and so you're reading it going, how can he possibly remember this? He doesn't, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because the truth of this essay is this other thing, right?
Yeah, the truth of the essay is that he does remember this other part. Yeah.
Right. And I guess, I mean, this is the stuff that I just find like really kind of fascinating, especially as we have so much of a mindset of like a choose your own facts kind of, I don't know, mindset these days, right? We just carry around these booklets and it's like, if you choose fact A, do this. And if you choose fact B, go do this.
I will say, I also talk to my students a lot about like the stories that we choose to tell ourselves and how sometimes that's more important, right? Like, I've got a student who's writing about his parents' divorce. And I was like, it doesn't matter why they got divorced. No. Like what matters is what's the reason they gave you and what's the story you told yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how did you explain it to yourself when you were 12?
Yeah, I'm very interested in the experiences that we have around these things, right? That to me, like that's where kind of like the truth lies in all of this, right? How we experience whatever art we're looking at, how we experience like this thing that happened to us that we're now going to write an essay about. That's the important thing, right? Again, not so much how many strip clubs are there in Las Vegas, right? Yeah. Silas, before I let you go, do you have any recommendations for the listener? Like books or music or movies?
I'll give you a couple.
Yes.
Movie-wise, I don't know why everybody hates it, but you should all go see The Bride. I thought it was. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it yet. No. But I'm very interested in this film.
I think you're gonna like it. It is a big swing.
Yeah.
In like the best ways. And like, does it always hit? No. But it is one of the most fun movies I have seen. And Jessie Buckley is phenomenal.
Oh, she always is.
She really always is.
She always is.
I love her.
Yeah. No, she's fantastic.
So good. So highly recommend that. Like it starts out real weird, but like immediately you're like, I'm in.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
Highly recommend that. And also Send Help was really good. Did you see that one by any chance? The new Sam Raimi that came out.
Oh, I haven't seen that either. It has been, it's been crazy busy around here.
Oh, no, absolutely. Listen, I don't think anyone goes to the movies as often as I do. I have AMC Stubs.
Nice.
I'm an
Yeah.
membership. A-lister, and so I go like at least. So highly recommend those. I also I'm trying to think. My colleague Jill Chrisman, her new book just came out. It's called The Heart Folds Early. It's a memoir. It's really, really, really beautiful.
That's an interesting title too.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful memoir. And Elizabeth Zaleski's book came out. Did you know Elizabeth?
I know, yeah.
So her book came out. Okay. It's called The Trouble with Loving Poets. It's from Belt Publishing.
Yep.
And it's fantastic. There are lines in that essay collection that I remember reading in workshop 15 years ago that like they've been stuck in my head for 15 years.
Nice. Yeah. Do you feel old?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I am almost 40, so.
Yeah. Well, I won't tell you how old I almost am, but
I'm almost 40, so I won't do that.
No. My beard is much whiter than yours too. So
I don't know. I got some weight in there.
Come on, look at that. Like you're not going to win that competition.
I'm not.
Silas, thanks so much for taking the time to work out my existential problem. Speaking of being an anti-philosopher, I really appreciate the time. And I don't know, where can we read some of your work?
The most recent publication I wrote an essay for March Sadness this year. Okay. That's about the Cranberries and friendship. And it made it to the second round, but it lost to Hootie and the Blowfish of all songs.
Seriously?
Yeah, the essay that I lost to was really good, and so I'm not mad. I'm not mad about it. But which
Hootie and the Blowfish song?
That is a great question.
Because that one I didn't see that one. I voted for the first round, but I didn't see the second round.
Yeah, I sent it to you for the first round, and then I forgot the second round. That is a great question, and I am completely blanking on the title. It's a great essay.
Okay.
Tell you that it's Katie Moulton, Moul.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anywhere else that we can follow you, keep track of you?
That's probably like my most recent thing. I am on Blue Sky. It's Silas _ I think there's an underscore. There might not be an underscore. It's my name.
Okay.
Either with or without an underscore. I'm not sure which. That's where I post things most often, I would say.
Okay. Well, everyone go out and follow Silas. And Silas, thanks again. And we will talk to you soon. If you like today's show, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can find ways to support the show in the show notes and follow along on Instagram @OneMoreThingsPod. Thanks for listening.